Is it possible for a prisoner to enter prison as an innocent man but leave as a murderer?
My name is Reggie Cole, and I was wrongly convicted for 16 and a half years.
Reggie Cole's childhood was marked by a tumultuous family dynamic that would shape him into the person he grew up to be. Reggie grew up in a small apartment in a low-income neighborhood. Reggie had 5 siblings, including an older brother, Kenny, who was a local gang member and protected Reggie from the neighborhood bullies. Reggie idolized Kenny and looked up to him as a role model. He also had a younger brother, Griff, who was responsible and took on a parental role to help care for Reggie and their other siblings. Griff would later become a private investigator. Reggie also had 2 older sisters. Reggie's early life was marked by financial struggles and the constant threat of eviction. His mother worked tirelessly to provide for her children, but it was a constant battle. Reggie often felt like he was living in a state of uncertainty, never knowing if they would have a roof over their heads or food on the table. At the age of 10, Reggie's older brother Kenny was shot and killed. This event had a profound impact on Reggie, who inherited Kenny's friends and enemies and also took on his brother's gang name, Gumby. Reggie was deeply affected by his brother's death and felt a sense of responsibility to carry on his brother's legacy. Since Reggie grew up in a gang-infested neighborhood, he was influenced by his brother's involvement in the local gang. He eventually dropped out of high school and spent time selling drugs and partying. Reggie's involvement in the gang was a way for him to cope with the loss of his brother and to find a sense of belonging in a community that was plagued by violence and poverty. By this time, his family had broken up, his parents had divorced, his older brother found a job, and his sisters eventually moved in with their spouses. His poor mother had little control over him and could not keep him away from the world of drugs. Reggie's main source of income was selling weed, but he was not a violent criminal by any means. By his late teens, he had become a seasoned drug dealer. Now comes the incident that changed the course of his life forever. On March 27, 1994, police were alerted to gunshots heard at 49th and Figueroa in South Los Angeles. Police officers Marcelo and Peter arrived at the scene to find the dead body of a 29-year-old man named Felipe Gonzalez Angeles. There was a brothel close to this area, and its owner, John Jones, provided the witness testimony. According to John, he had seen the altercation take place between 3 black teens and Felipe. After he heard the gunshots, he saw the 3 men run away, one of whom was limping. This testimony gave police reason to believe that one of the perpetrators had either been shot in the leg or had a leg wound. The police officer working on the case narrowed her suspicion towards Reggie, who had a wound on his leg. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Reggie's conviction was based on eyewitness testimony that later proved to be unreliable, and he was wrongfully accused of the crime. Poor Reggie was just 19 years old at the time of his conviction. He was sent to Calipatria State Prison in Imperial County, California. Cole's life in prison was a constant struggle for survival. Upon arrival, he tried his best to be an exemplary prisoner, adhering to the rules meticulously in hopes of being recognized as an exceptional case. He also embarked on religious studies to attain inner peace and understand why he was imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. Overall, Reggie tried his best to stay out of trouble. However, the harsh realities of prison life soon set in. Cole's cellmate became a victim of repeated rapes by an older inmate, which left a profound impact on Cole. He was not afraid of being killed, but the prospect of being raped was unbearable. Cole's daily routine in prison was filled with constant threats and violence. Inmates would hide drugs in their bodies to avoid detection during searches. Cole witnessed the extent of drug use and the lengths inmates would go to conceal substances. To protect himself, Cole learned the prison hierarchy from a seasoned inmate mentor. He recognized himself as a prisoner, someone who was unwillingly detained and fighting for their freedom. Cole described Calipatria as a money prison, where violence and drug use were rampant. He realized that in order to stay protected, he needed to join a gang. But it was hard for a newbie like him to become part of one. Reggie started working out, investing in his physical strength. He refused to let anyone overpower him and soon became part of a prison gang. He finally felt he was no longer alone. He would hang out with his gang members. He could socialize, take part in physical activities, and also find some comfort in the fact that if anyone attacked him, his gang would have his back. The most authoritative figure in the prison was Eddie Clark, also known as El Diablo, a shot caller who has spent 2 decades in California state prisons. The devil was granted the privilege of wearing an orange do-rag, symbolizing his power over both inmates and guards. He was a violent and sexually aggressive individual who terrorized other inmates. He controlled the prison's drug trade and was known to provide PCP-laced cigarettes to other inmates. El Diablo had a vicious criminal record that spoke volumes of the violence that he was capable of. As a teenager, he had been in juvenile detention where he murdered another teen. After his release, he broke into the house of an elderly woman. There, he assaulted her and killed her son. El Diablo's substance abuse issues worsened over time, leading him to become increasingly aggressive and violent. He would attack inmates for minor reasons, like looking at him wrong. If he raped someone, no one would say anything out of fear. Reggie Cole's first interaction with El Diablo occurred in the prison yard. Reggie was still adjusting to his new life in prison and was trying to avoid drawing attention to himself. He was taking part in painting one of the prison walls when an altercation happened between the guards and the prisoners. The guard found a knife in the yard and demanded to know which one of the prisoners it belonged to. All prisoners were lying down on the ground while the guard was investigating the situation. Now, the knife actually belonged to El Diablo's cellmate, who happened to be one of his very important men. El Diablo obviously wanted to protect his cellmate. He gazed amongst the prisoners, trying to pick one of them as prey, when his eyes landed on Reggie, who was also lying down amongst the rest of the prisoners. El Diablo pointed to the knife in the correction officer's hand and motioned for Reggie to take the blame for the incident. Reggie, who was already serving a life sentence without parole, knew that agreeing to take the blame would mean submitting to another inmate and potentially facing harsher treatment in prison. Reggie paused, considering his options. He knew that refusing Diablo's order would make him a marked man, but he also knew that agreeing to take the blame would make him look weak and vulnerable. With El Diablo staring at him expectantly, Reggie finally said, "No, not my knife." The silence that followed was deafening, and even the correction officers looked stunned. Everyone looked at this young man who just stood up to the devil. This interaction marked the beginning of Reggie's struggles with El Diablo, who would go on to terrorize the prison population and make life even more precarious for Reggie. This was well into 2000. 5 years had passed since Reggie Cole's sentence, and the devil had become a monster that everyone feared. Even his own gang members unsuccessfully tried to stage an intervention due to his erratic and violent behavior. Over the next 4 weeks, Reggie expected to be attacked by El Diablo or one of his henchmen. He knew that El Diablo would make sure he paid the highest price possible for refusing his direct order. Reggie's life in prison became even more precarious, and he knew that he had to be prepared to defend himself at any moment. Reggie, who was vulnerable due to his slim build and lack of ruthlessness, realized that he had to act quickly to protect himself. He was constantly on edge, knowing that he could be attacked at any moment. This constant fear took a toll on his mental and emotional well-being. Reggie was on high alert. He knew that he was within the radar of the most dangerous man in prison, so he was expecting some sort of retaliation any day. On November 28, 2000, tensions between Reggie Cole and Eddie Eugene Clark came to a head inside Calipatria State Prison. El Diablo had been nursing a grudge against Reggie for about a month now, and on that day, he finally expressed his frustrations. Reggie was walking around the perimeter of the exercise yard when he noticed El Diablo walking towards him. El Diablo didn't even try to sneak up on Reggie. He seemed to want Reggie to know that he was about to get attacked. Reggie stopped and just watched El Diablo as he got closer, not really sure what to do. When El Diablo was finally right in front of him, He didn't say anything. He just reached out and grabbed Reggie's shoulder with his left hand, and then with his right, he drove a knife into Reggie's side. Not far enough for a lethal blow, but enough to send a very painful message that Reggie's days were numbered. El Diablo leaned forward and whispered into Reggie's ear, "You are my bitch." And then he chucked the knife onto the grass and casually walked away. Reggie pressed his hand over his wound, gritted his teeth, and walked in the opposite direction of El Diablo, over towards the fence. There was nothing anyone could do for him. Even though there were many witnesses, nobody tried to help him. The guards made no sign of having even noticed the attack. And even if they had, Reggie, like other victims of El Diablo's violence, knew that reporting the incident would be futile. So Reggie decided to act quickly. About 15 minutes later, the bell rang, and it was time for all the inmates to head back inside their cells. The guards began searching the prisoners, making sure they weren't hiding any weapons or drugs. It was during this routine check that Reggie decided to seize the opportunity and stand up for himself. Reggie leapt over the crouched prison guard who was between them searching El Diablo and drove the point of his handmade knife directly into the front of El Diablo's throat. Whoa! El Diablo, still staring at Reggie, but now with a look of terror on his face, staggering backwards and off to the side. The blade had gone straight through his voice box, and blood was now pouring out of that 1-inch hole in the center of his neck. Reggie immediately threw himself to the ground, putting his hands behind his back. As he lay there looking up at the stunned El Diablo, Reggie knew the wound he had just inflicted was fatal. As everyone else in the yard also got down on the ground, guards started firing off their cans of pepper spray. Reggie told one of the nearby guards, "I know what I did. I know what I did." By the time the doctor had arrived 30 minutes later, El Diablo was dead. Reggie's actions were a matter of life and death. As he later explained, "I was going to kill him or he was going to kill me."
And I second guessed myself because I had went about this situation any other way. And no matter how many times I tell myself this was the only thing that could have happened, it don't sit right with me in my cell because I should have never been there in the first place. I'm innocent, man. And you turned me into what y'all say I was. Y'all been lying on me this whole time and you turned me into a murderer because I had to.
The lack of protection in such situations left him no choice but to defend himself against El Diablo's assault. Despite the consequences, Reggie's actions had a profound impact on the prison. Reggie's murder of El Diablo was a bold move that challenged the prison's power dynamics and put his own life at risk. He expected that other inmates, including El Diablo's lieutenants, would be gunning for him for killing the prisoner's shot caller. The outcome of the altercation was severe for Reggie. Reggie was placed into solitary confinement, charged with voluntary manslaughter, and pleaded no contest, which elevated his case to the death penalty level. This incident, however, ultimately led to the California Innocence Project, taking up his case in 2002. Here's where he met his savior, Christopher Pleward. Christopher Pleward was a seasoned criminal defense attorney who played a very important role in Reggie Cole's fight for justice. Pleward, who had previously represented Phil Spector during his murder trial, volunteered with the California Innocence Project in San Diego. Pleward was appointed to represent Reggie Cole. Cole contended that his attack against El Diablo was an act of self-defense.
So he gets put on trial in the death penalty case, and his lawyer starts looking into his original case and gives me a call and says, I think this guy's innocent of what he went to prison for the first place.
While working on this case, Pleward decided to delve deeper into the original 1994 case files. He discovered significant issues with Cole's murder conviction for the killing of Felipe Angeles. Pleward alerted the California Innocence Project about the problems in Cole's case, and they took up his cause immediately. The California Innocence Project, led by Justin Brooks, assembled a team of attorneys, including Pleward and Eduardo Rivera, to represent Cole. The team cast doubt on the eyewitness testimony that had been critical in convicting Cole and proved that his original legal representation had been ineffective.
And the second reason Reggie got out, besides the prison stabbing, was this miracle of there happened to be a book that had been put out about the LA Homicide Division.
Plord and his team found many inconsistencies in the way the evidence had been collected in the case. The night of the murder, Felipe had come to the brothel and knocked on the door. He wanted to meet a sex worker who went by the name of Melinda, but he was told to go away as Melinda wasn't available at the time. Around this time, the three teenagers approached him looking for some money. During this altercation, Felipe was shot while the teenagers ran away through the alley. John Jones, the brothel owner who gave the witness testimony, stated that one of the teens who ran away was limping and plying a leg wound. Here's where the police officer working on the case did her job extremely poorly. It is said that this was one of her first cases that she worked, and hence she wanted to close it quickly and also wanted to get a pat on the back for wrapping it up. She searched in the area for teenagers with a similar appearance and landed on Reggie Cole, who had just happened to be part of a gang. Reggie had a wound on his leg which landed him as the suspect, but here's where Christopher provided the correct evidence. Plord was able to prove that the wound on Reggie's leg had been from an accident that happened 5 years before Felipe's murder. Moreover, there was no DNA evidence which proved Reggie's presence at the scene of the crime. It was also found that the angle of trajectory of the fatal bullet that killed Felipe Angeles did not come from street level, where the prosecution's key witness, John Jones, claimed Cole and his co-defendants attacked Angeles. It likely came from one of the nearby houses. They also discovered that Jones had fabricated much of his testimony and that the evidence which would have proved that Reggie was innocent had been withheld from the defense. In 2007, Plord filed a motion showing the issues with John Jones' testimony and the undisclosed evidence. This led to an evidentiary hearing where Jones admitted that he had not witnessed the crime himself, but merely reported the events that had been relayed to him by his daughter. Jones claimed that he had merely told the police what they wanted to hear to conclude the case. It is also believed that since brothels are illegal, Jones just wanted to save his skin. Maybe it was he who shot Felipe after all. After the hearing, Judge Donald B. Donnelly agreed that Cole had received constitutionally ineffective assistance from counsel and struck down his original conviction. In 2009, the California Innocence Project filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus on Cole's behalf, alleging ineffective assistance of counsel, withholding of exculpatory evidence, introduction of false evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct. The district attorney conceded on the habeas petition and Cole's murder conviction was vacated. Christopher Plord's dedication and legal expertise were instrumental in securing justice for Reggie Cole. Plord's discovery of the issues in Cole's case and his tireless efforts to prove Cole's innocence ultimately led to Cole's release from prison in 2011 after serving 16 years for a murder he did not commit.
Working on for you, California man finally free after serving 16 years for a crime he didn't commit. This is Reggie Cole. He actually walked out of a California prison over the weekend, thanking the California Innocence Project and law school students who worked diligently on his case. Attorneys were able to successfully argue that Cole's 1994 murder conviction was based on evidence that was simply fabricated.
Plord's involvement in Cole's case was a turning point. Without the self-defense case against El Diablo, which elevated Cole's case to the death penalty level, nobody would have represented him, Plord explained. The attack on El Diablo, while tragic, brought attention to Cole's wrongful conviction. It became the very reason for Reggie's freedom. Just look at him celebrating the first day of his freedom.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, today is my first day of freedom. I feel good, and I'm saying, damn, I look good. I'm just saying. I'm telling you, boy, it feels good to be free. Thank everybody at the Innocence Project. Thank God. Thank my mom, my family for being so supportive.
My lawyer, Chris Plord, don't forget him.
I thought you were part of the my attorney, Mr. Christopher Plord.
There we go.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Thank you very much. I'm out.
Reggie Cole's story is a testament to the power of perseverance and self-belief. He also expresses his frustration at the officer who wrongfully convicted him. Despite the challenges he faced, Cole remained determined to clear his name and prove his innocence. Christopher Plord's dedication and his efforts to the California Innocence Project were crucial in ensuring that an innocent man did not die in vain. Cole states that he could not be more thankful for their life-saving support. His case highlights the need for effective legal representation and the importance of ensuring that the legal system is fair and just for all individuals, regardless of their background or circumstances.